Super. Thank you.
Happy New Year to all of you.
Yeah. Isn't it tomorrow?
Today.
New Year is tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right?
Yeah, it's tomorrow.
I remember.
Oh my God, I want to get out. And leading to red zones around the globe.
Sorry about that feedback, guys. If you can switch off your, mute your mics, it would help, I think. Thank you very much. Good evening and welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays, the first one for 2021. A new year and a new you, new me. We have some interesting conversations again today. And, you know, a new year always inspires optimism. And this optimism is couched in New Year's resolutions, a practice of intention and dedication to a new beginning. So today we focus on a new year, a new beginning. While ever hopeful, guys, we must prepare now for the obstacles you will likely face considering the year that we have gone through, and we are not over it yet. However, you know, life intervenes and you might get distracted, discouraged, depressed, overwhelmed, and even lose.
People we can say with absolute certainty did not murder anyone recently, and yet for some reason this DNA doesn't touch.
Sorry, I apologize for that. Some participants' mic is not muted. Sorry, I have to start again. So yeah, I was saying, while ever hopeful about the new year, we must prepare now for the obstacles we would likely face. You know, life intervenes and you might get distracted, discouraged, depressed even, and overwhelmed, and lose focus. There are many forces that want to pull you off the track that you have created for yourself. Creating a personal plan to stay on track, despite what you will encounter, is a good way to go about it. So start now by shoring up your resources to continue to make change. And it's possible. It's hard to watch when our fellow men or other beings, animals, are suffering, or when we even face the destruction of our environment, this unprecedented destruction we've seen and ongoing on a daily basis, the destruction of our rivers and the damming that happens, and the fragmentation of our forests that cause so much human-animal conflict, and our rivers and waterways that are blocked and access denied even to some of the villagers that live around it. So we may feel their pain or absorb these sorrows that we feel in our heads, that we have somehow feel kind of helpless. But we may worry that we don't know what to do or to say. And those uncomfortable moments that make us turn away from any distress we see, somehow to preserve ourselves, you know, to preserve our well-being, or to carry on with our lives like everything is normal. But that's okay too, you know, that's, you are allowed to feel these feelings. However, you need to get back on track. The ability to connect empathetically with others, to feel with them, to care about their well-being, and to act with compassion is critical to our lives. Helping us to get along, work more effectively, stick on the track that we set for ourselves for this new beginning, and thrive as a society. To ignore the destruction of the environment and the animals that live within is the destruction of our very existence and the survival of our children and the children to come. So while it may be easy enough to pretend everything is okay, the new me or us must favor the reality with love and compassion and hope. So those of us who feel we are doing something, as I think Wikipedia talks about the slacktivist, one who sits at home and signs petitions and write blogs and rants, must up the ante. Or I'm not saying you don't care, you care. But we need to up that ante and go on a path of activism. Join a group that are thus engaged. And what if, for instance, a group of environmentalist organizations pool their resources like other organizations dealing with whether it's children or whatever we want to talk about. But what if these organizations join together to make critical change? And without passion and a desire to make this status quo snap, nothing is going to happen. But that passion has to exist within the powerful. And right now, it doesn't seem to be that we are powerful, right? So finally, in order to prick our very conscience, in order to affect action, I want to leave you with a quote from Chief Joseph Chasing Horse. He's a direct descendant of the great spiritual reader, Crazy Horse, a Lakota Indian chief, and an ambassador to the UN, who said, "We are praying that mankind does wake up and think about the future. For we haven't just inherited this earth from our ancestors, but we are borrowing it from our unborn children." Selvi, without much ado, we have a lot to talk about today. So over to you. Just a reminder that Selvi is the founder of Poonam Foundation. And yeah, Selvi, over to you.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you for highlighting the problems that we have with the environment today. But New Year carries over more challenges from the previous years, not just the environment. But a new you is possible to face these challenges in a creative way. So that's what we are going to talk about. Now, to be able to face the challenges we are experiencing, what should we do? How should we change ourselves? How should we change our perspectives, our way of looking at world, having a different worldview? How is it, what is it that we need to do? See, it's always good to talk about we're having a different point of view or a different perspective, but how do we get there? That is a problem, a question in people's minds. Now, the only way to address problems is start vibrating at higher levels of consciousness and moving more towards treasuring your divinity. Then people might say, what is the connection? There is a lot of connection in this. Now, needless to say, we are facing many problems which we have inherited from the past. The cremation or burial issue from the Muslim community, the destruction of the Mullawaikal War Memorial for the Tamil community, problems of those disappeared, destruction and selling of nations' natural assets, the impending war crimes motion in the United Nations of Geneva. Most of all, the upshot of the COVID-19 on Sri Lankans and the world populations. COVID impact on the world economy and the livelihoods of people will have far-reaching effects on the lives of people for many more years to come. But hope springs eternally, and these challenges are not insurmountable. True to Einstein's words, you cannot solve the problems in the same levels of consciousness that created it. So this is where I say that we need to increase the vibrational frequency of our consciousness, because the consciousness that created the problem cannot solve it. We have to be higher and have a much higher perspective or a wider perspective in order to solve these problems. a different you with a level, different you with a raised levels of awareness. We want to look at how to get a different you with a raised levels of awareness, a different you radiating empathy and understanding. I'd like to state a small incident that happened yesterday. I met a friend of mine in her 70s who had contracted COVID, and she was in the isolation unit and was released in December. I could see she was exuberant and energetic. And I said, oh my God, she's gone through some bad experience, but she's still so exuberant and energetic. She was appreciating her being alive and well, which we normally take for granted. She related her experience of contracting COVID and her subsequent stay at the center with a sense of discovery. She said, for someone who has everything in life, money, family, status, position, COVID experience has taught me that what really matters when the chips are down is human contact and relationship. All 30 of us in that center were in dire straits. And what pulled us through was the empathy, the mutual respect, dignity, and the caring we shared with each other. She said, at this center, health systems failed us. Money did not help. Our position or status was of no consequence, and the family could not be present. I realized that it was the human qualities of caring and kindness and empathy that each of us brought out that made that hell that it was into a nurturing haven. While she spoke, she looked different and new. Her face had changed and become radiant and bright, and I could see that she was vibrating at a much higher frequency of awareness and consciousness. She had renewed herself in order to face these challenges. Now, I was so enthused by seeing her and the way she was talking. Then, what should we do for that reaching higher levels of awareness? Should we also go through COVID? But this is a call to mothers. How should they bring up children for higher levels of awareness? We must know and understand our lives in this planet. We are spiritual beings living a human experience and not human beings living a spiritual experience. Hence, spirituality is the only solution for all our problems. Mothers should inculcate spiritual teachings and practices for children from their young age. I mean spiritual, not religious. They are distinctly different. There may be different religions, but there is only one spirituality. Spirituality is the science of the soul. But then, how do we know we are spiritual or to recognize somebody else who is spiritual? There are several telltale signs to someone who is spiritually oriented. What does this new you and look like and sound like? What should the new you look like and sound like, right? I'm going to give you about 10 or 12 telltale signs. First one, gossip does not interest you. You're not interested in talking about gossip about other people. Second one, temptation don't overpower you. You will have control over what you think and what you do. So there you can't be easily pushed into some situation where the temptation overpowers you. Third one, perspective that is inclusive of all communities and diverse point of views. So you accept and include everybody, whichever community they are, and diverse points of views of these people. Money, position, and jobs do not motivate you. You will consider that only as a means for living. It's not a big deal, money, jobs, and position. They will be completely, you see, this is what I love about this. They will be completely dedicated to their work and they'll choose work that serves humanity. See, this is a sure sign of some spiritually aware person who is actually put his heart and her heart and soul into their work. Sixth one, they will not hesitate to do voluntary work if it would help humanity. They will care and help people around them, care for and help people around them. They're filled with a sense of gratitude for what life has given them. They will be appreciative of what little things and the thoughtful things that people do for them. And they're full of gratitude and they appreciation, gratitude. These are very significant traits of spiritual people. They will appreciate what people do, the small things that people do, everything around them, the sunset, the nature, the animals, the plants around, and so on. They are not resentful. Most importantly, they're not bitter, they're not hateful, they're not fearful, they're not angry and not aggressive. They don't, importantly, people dwell so much in their personal narratives. What happened to them? Where are they? Who did what to them? These personal narrations are important, but they don't dwell in it. In their personal narratives, they take responsibility for their entire life. And finally, they are filled with enthusiasm for life and have expansive personalities. These are some of the traits of spiritual people. It is commonly believed that doing spiritual practice is not for it's for the aged and those who have lived their life, and at the end of their life, they would do that. But it is for us now to live a better life. Spirituality is important. It is for children to grow up into responsible adults. It is for business people to treat the planet with empathy. It is for the politicians to bring about good governance, for men and women in society to nurture meaningful relationships. In order to make this happen, we need to start young. In this respect, mothers hold the key to establish the substrate of what we would produce as human beings, a just, truthful, and dharmic society, which is the crux of solving our problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Selvi. Sora, one thing you touched on is that about this difference between spirituality and religion. I think a whole lot of people are really confused about it. They think if they go to temple, every day of the week, or to church, or wherever they go to pray, that then they are on a different level with close to God. But I think this spirituality is this, it also gives you this sense of satisfaction when you have gratitude. As you said, I sometimes listen for the bird calls in the morning, and it is so joyous. And it's so simple, really. We're not looking for big things, right? So, I'm so glad you pointed out the 10 different important things about being spiritual. And hopefully our audience here will take away some of this from us. Soraya, do you have to ask Selvi anything here?
No, I feel so satisfied listening to Selvi. Thank you, Selvi, for awakening the giant in every one of us, Thank you.
So we will move on. As I pointed out, the problems of the past and what we had to face in the future and what the possibilities are. These ladies here, they are the true wisdom, because they will also encourage you and give you guidance on how to get there, which is what Selvi just did. And I know Soraya, Fazana, and Venerable Tenzin, today will also help you on. So you can maybe note down some of these things, or we can even have them posted later on our website, on our Facebook page rather. So Soraya, please tell us about, how instead of being resentful, we can get involved. And if you have love for the country, how you must be involved.
Thank you, Carol. We are all gathered here in very dark times. Let us not just kid ourselves. It's very dark. We have some leaders. We don't have statesmen anymore. We have politicians who are ruling the world in several countries where things are not beautiful for citizens. So this tells us that we have to show up in an unprecedented way. So when I think of a new year and a new year, what comes to my mind is an experiment that was done in Chicago several years ago. They brought together several athletes and they got them to run, perform, and they monitored their brains, their cells, and everything possible, heart rate, liver functions, and everything. So having recorded whatever was with those findings, then they got another group of athletes to come into the same experiment, but these athletes, they never ran outside of the building. They stood in that room and they stimulated the running in their minds. Okay, everything they did in their minds. They pretended they were running up top. They were climbing the hill, that they were going down. They were panting and everything. And amazingly, scientists found out the results recorded from the athletes who really ran and from those athletes who sat and simulated the running was the same. Now, this tells us a powerful story. This gives us a powerful calling. The reason, the beauty of this is that we can create our world within ourselves. And that takes us to even understanding that we don't have to wait for events to happen. We get to act as if it has happened. And this energy is very critical for us as we move into 2021. Because when you wake up in the morning, I don't know whether you were one of those persons who woke up this morning, went to your phone, read your WhatsApp and said, let me remember my problems a little. Did you do that? I mean, we do sometimes, right? And then did you say, let me suffer a little? Because I'm called to suffer here, you know. And this can be endless, my friends. So this program is definitely, this is not a lighthearted call, because we are calling on you as the future of our beautiful country, as peacemakers, as women and men who will reach out to one another and support each other, who will build beloved communities. This is all that we can do. I can't go to Parliament and shout even and bring a solution, can I? No. But what can I do though? I'm from Kandy. I can gather 20 neighbors and build a beloved community. And those 20 families, we can go to the next village, maybe go to Akurana or Watapulu or Katugastota, and we take our message of love. And don't you think that's how Jesus and Moses and Prophet Muhammad took their messages? Did they have WhatsApp and all of this? Today we have just become keyboard warriors. So this call is some real boots on the ground. My time is up, but Carol, give me 2 more minutes, okay? That was 4 minutes, okay? So what does this tell us? It tells us that you have to first understand what is negative that's happening in you. You can't just become a nice dead person. So what are the negative thoughts and emotions you're carrying? Okay? What is driving my thinking? How do I behave? What do I say? Notice that first. Pay attention and become very, very aware. If you had 10 negative thoughts, write it down, because tomorrow, believe me, you're going to have 9 negative thoughts. And the day after 8, 7, that's how we combat this menace of unlimited thinking. Okay? So having done that, we want you to take action. So make a decision to do two things. One is revise and improve your story. And the greatest resource you have to do it is you. Revise your story. And Carol spoke, Sylvie spoke, there are problems if you want to look around. But we are not denying the problem. We are going beyond the problem. Now, Michael Jordan said, go if you hit a wall, go above it, under it, or on the side of it. We're talking about challenging work that we have to do, so that we still the borrowed, as Carol said, this is borrowed territory, borrowed land, borrowed time. Everything is borrowed. So we have a duty to leave it good. So what I want to call upon you to do is make a decision with firm intention. I am not going to that brokenness, that hurt, and that suffering again. Thank you.
Thank you, Soraya. I mean, one of the things you touched on is about what each individual can do to make the change, right? And so, one of the things you can do where it comes to the environment, go out and plant a tree. Soraya said, gather 20 neighbors. Make sure these 20 neighbors are multiracial, multi-religious people. Let's practice tolerance. And sometimes we fear the unknown. We don't know, so we fear it, right? How can we figure it out unless we get to know them? So make sure that you incorporate people of other faiths and other race into your inner circle, so to speak.
And Carol, on that, quickly, even on this burial in the cremation issue, how many of us Muslims have reached out to our neighbors even and asked, how do you feel about this? We have to build that community. And if you agree with the cremation, why? And what, this is why we want the burial, and tell the stories of pain that is happening within the community. We are waiting for somebody else to do it, write a story or do something. And I don't think we will go far, because as minorities, we have to prepare for more challenges moving forward. Sylvie, sorry.
Yeah, I think, Soraya, your account was very much complimentary to what I said, because I talked about spiritualism, but I did not mention practice, because my time did not allow it, and you came in with the practice. That is the practice. One has to really look into yourself and create a condition in your mind, in your system, that can actually expand and not go through your negative thoughts. And so in order to negate the negative thoughts, one has to be aware of it. And that is getting up in the morning and looking at yourself and saying, what am I thinking now? Being aware and conscious of your thought is the beginning of your spiritual practice, and you brought it out very well. Thank you.
Yeah, and definitely this going to the WhatsApp early morning has to stop. Because where is your frame of mind when you read 10 posts saying that happened, this happened, and the other happened? Your energy is depleted for the day, And I'm saying this because I've done that. That is why I'm saying this. Yes. So we have to inculcate new habits. Yeah. Thank you. Did we lose Carol?
Carol, you're muted.
Okay, sorry. Selvi, I was asking you to mute your mic because there's an echo feedback from that. Sorry, yes, Soraya. I think you spoke very profoundly to what we need to do, If they say 50% of healing is to acknowledge you have a problem or a disease, right? So if you acknowledge your negative aspects, and we all have them, it's only human to have these negative aspects. We can only try to make it better, right? So if you acknowledge what your shortcomings are, then it's that much easier for you to overcome these shortcomings with this new you.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. we'll move on to Fazana. Fazana, your basis for action. Start with your thoughts, Fazana. That's what you said, right? And a new minimalist you. I'm waiting to hear this because I keep saying, I need to get rid of anything and everything that, is in my life that I haven't used or needed in the last year. So easier said than done. Fazi?
Yeah, Happy New Year to everyone. And this is our first program for the year for Wisdom Wednesdays. We are missing one of our participants, Kamini, who's, I'm sure, here in spirit, though she's not physically participating today. And when we were planning this program and we came up with this topic, a new year, new you, I wanted to talk about how the last year had affected me, because I want to connect with everyone out there who can relate to me, a single woman with 2 kids and working and managing everything on her own, and having literally the world turning upside down. And how do you cope? I have my twins doing their O-levels this year and 2 teenagers in the house, restless. This is the age they want to do sports, they want to socialize, meet friends, and also grappling with online studies. So we had to recalibrate ourselves a lot and make this an opportunity. So this is what I wanted to share, the message that we have to find a positive reason, or make anything that's negative positive, and make the best of a situation. So there were a few tips that I followed and I wanted to share it with you. One of it is one of my core ethos, which is positive thinking. It's an optimistic attitude, and it's the practice of focusing in the good in any given situation. So this can have a big impact on your physical and mental health. And of course, that doesn't mean that you ignore the reality of the problems and take it light, but it's how you approach it. So first of all, we gave COVID, and where we are stuck at home, lockdown, working from home, people having salary cuts, access to food, all that, we took it positively. And Karen, that's where what you said came in. So now you're at home, you don't have much mobility. It opened my eyes into things that I didn't do before, to look into things that I didn't need. So I started practicing minimalism. It's about living with less, because obviously a lot of us will have lesser opportunity to even earn. And living with less, minimalistic attitude really helps, because it's the philosophy of, it's about getting rid of all that is excess and living life based on experiences rather than worldly possessions. You can probably see how much less stuff you can also free up, even for you financially. So, there's this saying you have succeeded in life when all you really want is only what you really need. So too many people spend money they haven't earned, but to buy things that they don't want, to impress people that they don't like. So this is something that we laugh about, right? So I would say simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So this leads to one of the more talked of topics of today, which is sustainable consumption and production, which is about promoting, more sustainable ways of using our resources. So if you look at how we were before, this is also a SDG 12 in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And if you look at even the corporates, right? They were looking at their carbon emissions and looking at how can they reduce it. So now it has just happened, guys. We work from home, we pollute the air less air travel. All this were taken into account when a company measures their carbon footprint. And now we are practicing a lot of, so what I'm trying to say is look at the positive in where we are. So sustainable consumption and production is about promoting resource and energy efficiency, sustainable infrastructure, and providing access to basic services and green and decent jobs and better quality of life for all. And I think, we are getting there, though we on the backdrop of COVID, of course. So companies which were very old fashioned, which never wanted people to work from home, never had the resources, the systems, the infrastructure, the IT capacity, have been pushed into it. They have to do it. It's a do or die situation. And now many of them have adapted to this flexible work style, and it's working well for them. Things are still happening, people are functioning, work is going on, but a bit more flexibly. And believe it, I think it's very good for people's family lives as well, to spend more time with their family. Like I said, declutter your home, you don't spend hours in traffic. So all this comes into play. Also, the other thing we learned was to focus on what is most important to you. So because if life has gotten away from you and it demands upon you and making you feel overwhelmed, anxious and depressed and deeply concerned about the future, it's always good to refocus on what is important to you, who is important to you, and determine those items, at least 5 of those items, and just focus on those areas which are without going all over the place. And Selvi, I have to agree with you. The spirituality is so important, and this was one of the things that helped me through as well, to be more spiritual. I practice meditation, and I've now started yoga. So that's the other area that we can try new things. That's the other thing for the new year, a new you. Let's try new things. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be, is what people say, right? So you never know what you can do until you try, and very few try unless they have to. So we had to, and we have the time now. So I've been practicing online yoga and a lot of spirituality, and this is for me the new year and the new me, and I'm pretty content, I must say, and I would like to share this wisdom with all our viewers. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Fazana. When you also believe in selfless giving, so you have something to say? I'll let you come in first.
Is it me? Yeah, thank you. All right. I'd like to just completely agree with what Fazana has said. I think she really touched the most important thing that has come over us during these COVID times. And one example I can give, when I was working with the United Nations, is that when I was doing pretty well as a national officer at the United Nations, there were some offers where I could become international, meaning I can actually go abroad to work. And then I was preparing for that, because there are so many things that you need to do. It's a lot of laborious work. And my mother said, why do you want to go abroad and work elsewhere? So I said, no, but this is a lot more money. Then she said, okay, but what is it that you are not doing now because you don't have money? You are having your holidays, you're teaching your daughter, to putting her through university. You got enough money for your housing, your food, your everything, your travel in the country. Now, what is this extra money going to give you? And what are you getting in return? You're going to get completely disrupted your life and your child's life by moving into another country, and then all of that will come in its train. But why do you want to do that? Just for that extra bit of money which you don't need, So I thought about it and I said, my God, it's so true. I don't really need that money. And why am I doing it? Because of my ego. I want to feel, that I'm getting ahead, that I want to do something, that everybody else is doing it. Not that I wanted it. So that minimalism is not just in material things, but also in our pursuits, in our career, in our education, in our other things, which are non-material also. It counts a lot. We don't need to do so many things. We can be very happy with what we have. And that's what I did. And I'm so thankful to my mother to have pointed this out. Thank you, Fazana, for bringing this up.
Sometimes I ask, when is it enough, right? How many houses should you have to say it's enough, right? How many cars should you have to say it's enough? So I think people accumulate things. Some people try to achieve more and more. It's a kind of competition within themselves. And in a sense, I understand this because I am a sportswoman, and I know how, you're always striving to be better. And for me, it's not necessarily for the accolades or my family saying how wonderful, or you're still playing, competitively or whatever. It's just that fire within myself that I feel that I need to push myself further and further. But when it also comes to accumulation of things, I think sometimes people collect things to substitute for some other thing that's lacking in their lives. And this is where, Fazana, what you were saying, about, selfless giving takes you away from that whole idea of accumulation. And it is so rewarding to those of you who do selfless giving. And there's a lot of people in Sri Lanka, actually, as individuals, who do a lot for the marginalized or the less fortunate. And they don't even talk about it. And that's the glory of it all, right? Because that then in comes that spirituality within you as a person, because you're reaching to be a higher being, in a sense, not going after it with that thought in mind. But when you do selfless giving, you automatically reach a higher frequency.
Yeah, very quickly, I have a question for Fazana, because I also see Venerable Tenzin. She's going to be a treat this today. Fazana, I know you are a mother of 2 young kids, and your living must inspire and influence your children. How do you teach them that, let's say they want this and that that gadget and this gadget? How do you really teach that to them? To be able to live with the minimum. We don't need all these new iPhones and new games.
Well, my kids don't have phones. I've bought them phones, but it's with me and it's rationed. They don't watch TV, or they don't play any PS4 games. They spend time outdoors. We do a lot of hikes, waterfall hunting. Even with the current COVID, we take off out of town and spend time in the jungles. Carol knows that. But now, just the next 4 months, we'll take it a bit slow because they are gearing up for their O-levels in May. But of course, I do reward them with some treats, or earlier it used to be like, I don't know, a little travel overseas or something like that. But they are not majorly into techno because they've not grown up with that. But it is a challenge, because when they go and visit a friend and come, they will say, oh, they've got a new whatever. But we do have Netflix, we do have TV, but they actually don't watch because it's not something they've used to as a ritual. So sometimes we all sit and watch a movie together. We watched Funny Boy recently, all of us watched it together. So yeah, we do things. So we do a lot of things together. So that's why, I guess. Yeah.
Finding creative ways to spend time with them, right? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Over to you. Back to you, Carol.
I think, life is so quick and so short. When you have kids, they grow up too quickly. And sometimes you turn around and say, I was making money, I was trying to get ahead, I was doing so many things. And life passed you by because suddenly the kids are all grown up and you want to spend time with them. And they are too busy to, doing other things, getting on in their lives to spend that time with you. Yes, we are a little bit
Carol,
early
you always tell me this, no? You always tell me this, yeah.
Just I keep telling Fazana, please enjoy your time with the kids, because I was a single parent to Fuzzy, as you know, at the time. And, my struggle was, making ends meet and putting my kids through a good education, etc. And so I missed out a few years in that sense, and I can never get it back, right? And the kids now tell me, Mom, I wish you worked less and you were home more. But then I said, how about those long lists of things you always wanted, So this is what Soraya was saying, they see other kids having things and they want the same thing. But the biggest joy you can give your kids is actually to spend that time with them. I think that they will prefer that to anything else. Selvi?
Yeah, I think I wanted to say this point very emphatically. These things, these material things, the phones and the games and all of these things are given as substitute for the time the parents did not spend with them. And that's where the problem is. because the children feel neglected and they are being pacified by these electronic and other toys, you know. And so that actually builds up more resentment in the children's hearts than that there would be normally there. And Farzana has actually got the strategy right. Most importantly, to bring children spiritually aware and to vibrate in a higher consciousness, they need to get involved in nature. And this has to happen very regularly, very systematically. Children should be brought out to nature in a very systematic way. This is the only way they can be taken away from these kind of desire for material things and to grow spiritually. Thank you, Farzana, for that very, very useful way of bringing up your children.
I can't wait to hear Venerable Tenzin guide us now. I don't know, Carol, yes.
Carol is muted,
So
right?
over to, I'm okay, yeah. Over to Venerable Tenzin. You know, she's ordained a bhikkhuni in the Tibetan order. We are so grateful, Venerable Tenzin, that you are with us, because we know it's past midnight hour for you where you are, and yet you have dedicated that time to us, and we are eternally grateful. So Venerable Tenzin will talk about the universal compassion we need to have even to the perpetrators of injustice, for instance. Over to you.
Thank you. Happy New Year. I'm most fortunate to be able to connect with you all today in the new year. The planets have aligned for me in getting internet all set up. So, and I feel so inspired by listening to such collective wisdom. You know, I really build up hope for Sri Lanka and also for the world. When you have these female, strong, considered mothers, considerate and considered, kind mothers, wives, activists, there is a lot of wisdom here. There's a lot of love here. So I feel very hopeful going into the future, and I hope to connect with you and sort of learn from each other and also give that support to one another. Yes, in the topic that I've been asked to sort of address in the new year, how can we bring this unconditional, boundless love that we know? I think if you are listening to this, I think you are already convinced that we all have that as human beings. We have this ultimate capacity within us. We have Buddha nature, we have Christ within, we are all God's children. We believe that. So, but in real life, when we operate on a day-to-day basis, we don't feel that, right? We actually notice the despair, the sadness, the hopelessness, and also we're not constantly acting from unconditional love towards everyone. So what is the disparity here? And almost sort of Selvi and Soraya stole my thunder, because Selvi mentioned spirituality is key, and all of you obviously have connected with that and practicing brought spirituality into your life, and showing such amazing result for it. And Soraya actually mentioned the key thing that Buddhism talks about is that we create our worlds with our mind. So we have the microcosm of ourselves. If we talk about form of transformation and the world that we want to see outside, we have to first create it within ourselves. And how do we go from where we are to where we want to be is, I think we take a reality check and we have to become really honest with ourselves and check up. Can I really create that unconditional love right now for all my people that make my life a misery? If not, it is fantastic. Admit that we cannot do that. It is a path. For most of us, it doesn't happen like a light globe going off and we are enlightened, voila. It's a lot of hard work. It's practice. It's familiarizing ourselves with a different way of being and transforming our thoughts and minds. So this takes effort and might take a little time. So I think that honesty and introspection, checking up, and then actually saying, okay, what can I put in place to get where I want to be? So all we have is aspiration, and we want to be, these activists transforming the world, but we cannot actually take the first step in checking up if I can generate what is my level of love towards myself and also my family. How am I interacting with my neighbors? How do I react when I hear some bad news, something is happening, a conflict is taking place? What is coming up for me in my mind? We got to be very honest. And I think if we can really accept, okay, I feel hatred towards such and such a person for generating, misery in the world. I'm angry. I cannot wish goodwill. I cannot generate unconditional love for that person yet. I think by admitting that, we are actually understanding the darkness within ourselves, the anger within ourselves, the positives and the negatives. We come from that point, we can also understand somebody else's negatives and positives. So we connect on that basis that we are not perfect yet, and neither are the others. We can generate a level of understanding and compassion from that place. I think at least that's how I'm kind of working on it. And then ancient wisdoms have provided a lot of tools. We have to start putting them into practice. If we embark on a journey, we set up a destination, but we cannot get in the vehicle, we can't book accommodation, we're too lazy, we are sitting at home in our comfort zone. Like, flies are pretty comfortable in their comfort zones, and they wallow in shit quite happily, but we are not flies. So we got to move out of our comfort zone. Do we have the courage this year to actually break a few eggs and start making an omelette? We got to change something. We can't have the cake and eat the cake as well. And all of you demonstrated, Farzana, you said you are investing your time in your children, and that may take away from your career. We have to make compromises, and we have to prioritize. What is our mental happiness, our well-being, our families, our communities have to be important to us. And then our environment, all of the things that you mentioned, once we feel connected, and this, to my shame and delight, I also experienced in a long time that I was able to connect and listen to birds chirping during COVID. It used to drive me mad when people watch birds, these twerps and chirps, and I used to make fun of them. But for the first time, I was, wow, how amazing. Just to feel my feet on the ground and feel the birds, not rushing. It's not sitting on the cushion. I can just quite happily look at the environment and feel that, that is a spiritual being. That is an awakening. I could, people could think, oh, meditating as if you have to sit up on a mountain, and no, just feeling connected to your fellow human beings and coming from that empathetic joy. If you get tears seeing a puppy and a little baby, you're in a good place, I tell you. So I think building community, looking at all of the methods that you mentioned, we have to make a start on that basis. So I want to leave, but the other thing is when actually the rug gets pulled from underneath us, we become positive and we want to do this and that, and something catastrophic happens out there, no control, we don't have control. How do we get despondent quite quickly? So I think we need to understand the wisdom side of things. The wisdom is that how do things exist? We can't have faulty way of understanding how things exist out there. They come about through a lot of interconnectedness. Causes and conditions bring about things. We have to take a long-term view, and we can't feel despondent or we can't feel totally responsible. Any conflict, any catastrophe, you look at the causes and conditions started long way ago, long way before that actually culminated in the result. So I think that should be the hope, that things can change, they are impermanent, and a lot of conditions come. We do our best, hope for the best, but we are not invested in our moods, and our happiness is not invested in what's happening out there. So we got to build up our resilience and understand reality. So with that, I want to tell you, if I have time, I want to share a little story that I heard. in 1 or 2 minutes. This is to actually to get inspiration. That I connected with this professor who has come to Australia as a refugee from the Balkans War. And she managed to get a career in psychology. She became a successful career woman, therapist. While she's practicing, she realized that she still had hatred towards her enemy, because she is a child of Serbian and Croatian, and she married a Croatian. So there was all mixed family, but she copped it from both sides. So the cruelty that she experienced had really left a lasting kind of bitter taste in her mouth. And one day she was listening to the radio, and she heard over the radio that the Chinese government had released a Tibetan Lama who had been in jail for a long time because it was the chairman's birthday or whatever. A certain number of prisoners were released. And this particular Lama had been in jail for a long time. And first thing he wanted to do was visit his beloved teacher, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. When he went to the Dalai Lama, this old Lama, Dalai Lama said, "Oh, tell me, how was it in jail?" And this old Lama said, "Oh, I was in grave danger." And His Holiness said, tell me about the grave danger." And he said, "I was in grave danger of losing my compassion for the perpetrators, the people who tortured me, the Chinese." And this hit Anita hard. She thought, I need to find the methods that Lama used to protect his mind, because I'm full of anger and hatred for my perpetrators. So I leave you with that. There are people who have boundless love and compassion for their perpetrators, and we can do that, but we have to start. So with the starting, if I've got 1 minute, we can do a little closing meditation.
Sorry, Tenzin, before you go into that, into the meditation, I want to ask you a question, because Kamini was supposed to be with us today.
Right.
And she, Kamini is also a practicing Buddhist.
Yes. Yes.
So she's in a place where she's very, very concerned about feeling sorry for Sinhala Buddhist. I'm asking you a very specific question, rather than so much the Tamils and those practicing the, Tamils, or those practicing the Muslim faith.
Yes.
Because she says somehow she feels that the Sinhala Buddhists are cheated by those in power, or those leaders, or even the monks to a great extent, because they are led down the wrong path and led to hate anybody who is not a Sinhala Buddhist. And they are so ill prepared to embrace Lord Buddha's words, but they do it in the name of Buddhism. So Kamini was actually going to talk about that today. I would like you to just mention something about that before you go into the meditation, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yeah. What I can say is, in the name of Lord, taking Buddhist teachings, the wisdom and compassion, and turning that into a doctrine of hatred and suspicion and control is very, very sad indeed. And if politicians or people are buying into that, and again, I'm a little reluctant to point fingers at any one person, because these conditions come about as a result of many, many causes and conditions. So to change them, and yes, Kamini is thinking that if somebody in the Buddhist way, if somebody is having harmful thoughts against any race or any religion or any human being or any animal indeed, is quite scary, because we have dire consequences that we would in turn have to experience as a result of killing and harming others. Indeed, the whole country, there's a chain of this violence that has been ongoing for 70 years or longer. We have never had a period of more than 5 or 6 or 7 years of peace at a stretch. So what does that say? There's been too much violence. And in Buddhism, one of the worst, most scariest things that we have to protect our mind against is this habituation of hatred. Because once it becomes a habit, it's very hard to get away from that, and the consequences we suffer continuously. So yes, we should, Kamini's thinking of feeling sorry for them is very, very appropriate in this instant. because there is no wisdom and compassion there.
Thank you so much. You can continue now.
So we can take a minute to gather ourselves, and we'll do since that we understand the power of energy, let's create some super duper powerful, more powerful than anything that we can imagine. We have tremendous potential within our own hearts. So we'll put that to practice. So please make yourself comfortable wherever you are. And there is no hard and fast rules about how you sit. If you feel more comfortable standing, stand. If you're comfortable sitting, stay where you are. And you can close your eyes. I think it's a little bit easier to connect because it is for a very short time. Might be easier to just gather ourselves and settle our minds if we close our eyes for a second and just connect with your breath. So just take a couple of breaths, just becoming connected with connecting our body and the breath together, sort of coming home. We'll set an intention that we are doing this little practice, and indeed the whole talk is we are dedicating to for the benefit of others, to develop loving kindness towards one another, to go away from the faulty ways of thinking about how we and others exist, to develop respect for each other and the environment we live in, to protect our minds against harmful ways. And with this, we'll invite any higher power, any being, any entity to help us spread and develop ourselves. So we can invite this Buddha or Jesus or God, white light to above your head, whatever inspiration. And we can imagine they're seated above our head, very loving, very pleased with our request. And from their heart comes white light, really bright, falling on the top of our head and spreading across our whole bodies. And just we are being completely cleansed of whatever is blocking us from developing love and compassion, impartiality, equanimity, and empathetic joy. Just keep imagining this white light going through every cell in your body, removing all the blockages, all our fears, all our despair, our reluctance, our anxieties, making us totally fearless, totally equipped to face the year, to be able to respond in love and compassion, combined, conjoined with wisdom. And now imagine that we are completely cleansed and purified and stainless, like a diamond, completely shiny. And we can invite this holy being, inspiration, to come to our heart. Just imagine it just dissipates and comes and sits inside our heart, making our heart even more powerful. That person's, that being's love and energy is within us now. And with this wonderful courage and inspiration and strength, we can imagine we are sending this white light to all the beings, all the people, without discriminating. Anyone who needs love, compassion, healing. It's going in all 10 directions, as far as you can imagine, covering the whole planet, radiating every being. Nobody's left out. Now imagine all the beings in the world, just like us, have completely cleared their fears, their sicknesses, their worries, radiating in peace and love. So you can listen to the sound of the compassionate mantra just for a second and just enjoy the feeling of peace and joy. Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Venerable Tenzin. That was very good. And I think, everybody had some really good things to say today about moving forward. And, before we move on, I'd like to wish you all, you and all your family, a very happy Pongal. Tomorrow is Pongal. It's a festival, a harvest festival, which is celebrated by Tamils. Selvi, especially to you, happy Pongal for tomorrow. And may your lives be filled with sweetness and a new beginning. Our next forum is on the 27th of this month. Do join us then. And we are only pleased to be able to gather some more information and some more wisdom so that we can all share it with you. On that note, good night. God bless you all. And let's move into the light.